foreign succession. So Henry passes away, leaves behind Vina, Grace, and Andre. John, what's the basis for U.S. succession laws to apply here?
Yeah, so from a federal perspective, all U.S. citizens are considered to be domiciled in the U.S. regardless of their location. Henry does happen to be physically in the U.S. We look at a state level analysis to figure out, again, which succession rules apply, and then the succession law that will apply to the U.S. company shares. There's an opportunity here in all of these questions to kind of pre-plan. So we have a distinction between testate and intestate succession. Hopefully Henry's taken good advice, he's got a will in place, and so he has a good amount of decision-making authority over resolving any conflicts of laws from different jurisdictions that might potentially claim jurisdiction over the property that he's going to be passing. And if he does that in a will, that'll clear that up before he passes. If he doesn't, we're under different intestate succession laws and how they define the property that they have jurisdiction over. And then forced heirship we touched on earlier. Don't really have that concept. Some statutory protections for a spouse maybe, but not really anything that would mandate something to go to the children.
Thanks.
The US wouldn't follow the citizenship of the deceased, would it? He's still an Indonesian citizen. Would it apply Indonesian law because he's a national of that country, or what would it just apply his residency status in the US?
Yeah, it would not impact the US determination, but there may be an outside impact, and then we'd want to look at whether there are estate tax treaties in place. In this instance, there is not. And so you're going to want to be very careful from an executor perspective about how you go about paying the relevant taxes. So if Indonesia were to have some claim, and I'll let Freddie speak to that, but let's say, for example, case that they did, you would want to make sure that was that you timed the credits sideways, because the US isn't going to give that credit for foreign taxes paid. Indonesia might. So you want to settle the US side first and then claim the credit, because if you do it the opposite direction, you might end up in a double tax situation that you otherwise could have avoided, and you either spend time claiming back or you won't be able to claim back.
Thank you. Freddie.
Yes.
Would US or Indonesian succession laws apply to the Indonesian property of Henry?
I think this for the illustration of the case here, Pak Henry still hold Indonesian citizen and Pak Henry has Indonesian asset. From Indonesian law perspective, the inheritance should follow the Indonesian law.
Sorry, would the US or any foreign forced heirship rights be effective over the Indonesian property?
I don't think so, because the Indonesian law should be upheld in this case in the event Pak Henry passed away and still holds Indonesian citizen, and this is the Indonesian property anyway, so it's impossible to enforce the foreign law decision, which may have different opinion, but the forced heir rights under Indonesian law still applicable in case any breach of the forced heir rights in the distribution.
Okay, unless the marriage, the US marriage wasn't registered in Indonesia, right?
If they didn't register, let's say Grace or Andre, they become the so-called illegitimate children, so they need to have the court order first by submitting various supporting documents to have a declaration decision that they are the legitimate one, the legitimate child. And then after that, they can have the protection of the forced hair rights here, meaning that they do the 2 steps action before they get the forced hair rights.
Yeah.
What about Vina, the wife? If the foreign marriage wasn't registered in Indonesia, what's the status of Vina as a forced heir? Is she still a forced heir, the surviving wife?
Yeah, because administrative issue here, Vina cannot be considered as the wife for the purpose of the under Indonesian marriage law because not registered yet.
Right.
So very difficult for her to pursue the rights community property here. But if she has benefit from the testament given by Henry, assuming that Henry gives the testament, Vina can pursue the rights under the testament as one of the here.
Right. Yeah, well, she just wouldn't have the forced heir rights because she's be viewed as unmarried. That's
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's move to the next one, please. Okay, Zach, this one's for you. Can the Indonesian forced heirship rules and clawback rights be exercised against the trust in Singapore?
Yeah, so Singapore, like Hong Kong, has the ordinary anti-forced heir provisions. It would all be down to, I mean, in this case, we're saying that Henry's US domicile at death. The key thing on the Singapore side for the protections is that at no time was Henry a Singapore domiciliary, either at the creation or the later transfer of assets into this trust, and assuming the fact pattern that he had no connection with Singapore, then the anti-forced heirship provisions under the Singapore Trustee Act would apply in the usual way to defeat a forced heir claim. And then with respect to the succession law, which succession law will apply to Cayman company shares, Indonesia or US? Now that would be a matter for Cayman Islands to determine applying its own forum rules. And what they would say is they would look at the domicile at death. Under Cayman law, they would look at Henry's connection to the US. And I think in this instance, they would accept that Henry died a US domiciliary, and therefore succession to the company shares in Cayman Islands is governed by US succession law and not Indonesian forced heir rules. Because Cayman Islands, like the US, a common law jurisdiction, and they would look to domicile and not nationality at death for the applicable law to be applied to which heirs can get the shares to the company. So it would be US law that would be applied to the Cayman company shares.
Thanks, Zach.